The Hunter's Lodge aboard Station Omega-9 was alive with the low hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, and the occasional roar of laughter. It smelled of metal and something faintly acrid, like the collective pride of hundreds of self-proclaimed apex predators marinating in a confined space. And I, Zixthrak, once the undisputed terror of 12 systems, sat slumped in a chair that was far too comfortable for my liking. My crystalline exoskeleton, once adorned with trophies, scorched talons, melted blades, even a fragment of a moon from the Tixian Wars, was now bare. All I had left was a name tag that read, "Hello, I'm Zixthrak, Wildlife Management Specialist." I heard the whispers, the mandibles clicking in poorly disguised amusement, the tentacles quivering in mock sympathy. They were all here to listen to my story, not out of respect, but for the spectacle. Oh, they'd heard the rumors. Zixthrak, the legendary hunter, brought low not by a galactic superweapon or an impossible prey, but by a species so ludicrously primitive that it should have been child's play. But I knew better now. I leaned back, my voice reverberating through the lodge's metallic walls. "You want to know why I refuse to hunt humans?" I said, my crystalline appendages tapping a slow, deliberate rhythm on the armrest. Why the galaxy's most feared predator retired to a life of conservation and snacks? The room stilled. Even the most arrogant among them leaned in slightly, mandibles stilling, compound eyes narrowing. I had them. Good. Context was everything. 12 cycles ago, I would have laughed at anyone who suggested I might ever feel this way. I was the pinnacle of my species, the relentless pride of the Enxian hunting clans. We Nixon were born for this, engineered by evolution to be the galaxy's apex predators. My exoskeleton could withstand temperatures that would incinerate most life forms. My sensory arrays could detect the faintest ripple of electromagnetic energy. My neural network processed targeting solutions faster than the combat computers of a war-class starship. In short, I was the perfect hunter, and I knew it. "Everything you've heard about my reputation," I said, letting my crystalline surface glimmer in the dim light for dramatic effect, was true. 12 systems. Over 1,000 successful hunts. I stalked prey through the acid storms of Nexus 6. I tracked quantum-shifting entities across the probability mazes of the Shringus world. And I once spent 3 months in vacuum just to bring down a space whale. A low murmur of appreciation rippled through the crowd. Ah, they still respected the old tales, even if they came to mock what I'd become. But none of that prepared me for humans, I said, lowering my voice. You see, it all started with what I now call the worst decision of my life. The crowd shifted forward, the smell of ozone and musk thickening as predators of all kinds leaned in, their attention fully mine. Even the automated servers seemed to move more quietly. It began as most bad decisions do, I continued, swirling a glass of Centurion brandy in one crystalline appendage, with arrogance. I had just returned from hunting the ghost leopards of Proxima 9, a child's challenge, honestly. As I basked in the glow of yet another triumph, rumors began to circulate about a new species entering the galactic community. Humans, they called themselves, deathworlders, a species whose planet of origin, Earth, was classified as a Class 10 hazard zone. Naturally, I was intrigued. Who wouldn't be? A death world? Surely its inhabitants would make for the most exhilarating prey. But as I shared my intentions with my peers, their reactions surprised me. They didn't celebrate my ambition. They laughed, and worse, they warned me. Humans? One of them scoffed, a massive feline-like predator with glowing, slit-pupiled eyes. They're not prey, they're chaos, wrapped in soft, squishy flesh. You don't hunt humans, you survive them. Another, a multi-limbed Peronian with a carapace that gleamed like obsidian, chimed in. The last hunter who tried to hunt humans? They came back missing 3 limbs and their dignity. And they were lucky. I dismissed them. Arrogance is a warm and comforting thing, you see. Humans, I said, waving a crystalline appendage as if brushing away the very notion of their danger, are merely a challenge I have yet to conquer. a challenge I would conquer. Or so I thought. When I announced my intent to hunt humans, the reactions only grew more baffling. The betting pool didn't wager on if I'd succeed. It wagered on how spectacularly I'd fail. 50,000 credits were pooled within the hour. An Arcturian arms dealer even tried to sell me insurance. Insurance, with triple coverage for dismemberment, psychological trauma, and something they called dignity restoration. I should have listened. I should have seen the signs. But no, I was too proud, too determined to prove everyone wrong. The journey to New Eden, one of Earth's fledgling colonies, was uneventful. From orbit, the planet seemed unremarkable. Green continents, blue oceans, fluffy white clouds, a Class M world. It wasn't until I began descending that the first seeds of doubt crept in. The gravity was heavier than standard, 1.1 Gs. Just standing would be a workout for most species. The atmosphere was thick with oxygen, enough to ignite a Peronian into spontaneous combustion. And the weather. By the void, the weather. Massive storm systems that could strip the paint off a starship roamed the surface like predatory beasts. The humans called these mild. Still, I pressed on, targeting a small settlement on the edge of what they called a national park. 40 dwellings, primitive construction using processed tree carcasses, no visible energy shields, no automated defense turrets, not even a basic neurodisruptor field. I recorded my observations in my hunt journal. These humans are practically begging to be hunted. Oh, how wrong I was. The first sign of trouble should have been the settlement's defenses. Not advanced weaponry, no, but strange humanoid statues with pointed hats and painted smiles. Garden gnomes. My research identified them as relics of some ancient cultural whimsy. Harmless, I assumed. The gathered hunters chuckled as I recounted this part, already guessing where the story was going. But I ignored their knowing smirks and pressed on. Under the cover of night, I began my approach. My stealth field shimmered around me, rendering me invisible to most forms of detection. The humans' primitive monitoring systems, simple motion sensors and basic infrared, were child's play to bypass. And then it happened. I stepped onto the lawn of my target and heard a hiss. My crystalline appendages froze. One of the gnomes swiveled its head 180 degrees, and before I could react, it sprayed me with a fine mist. Bear spray. Do you know what bear spray is? It's a concoction so potent that it can deter creatures capable of tearing through battle armor with their claws. And humans casually deploy it in lawn ornaments. That, my fellow hunters, was the moment I realized I had made a terrible mistake. But it was only the beginning. The sting of the bear spray lingered in the air, sharp and acrid, clawing at my senses. My crystalline exoskeleton, designed to withstand the acid storms of Nexus 6, now felt like it was on fire. I stumbled backward, my stealth field flickering as my neural network scrambled to recalibrate. That's when I heard the click. A click, as any seasoned hunter knows, is never a good sound. Before I could react, the ground beneath me gave way, and I found myself ensnared in a net. The material, paracord, my database informed me, was surprisingly durable, reinforced to withstand forces far greater than anything this primitive settlement should have been capable of handling. The net hoisted me effortlessly into the air, leaving me dangling upside down like a freshly caught specimen for some alien zoo. I struggled, my crystalline appendages thrashing against the confines of the net, but it was no use. The fibers only tightened, digging into my exoskeleton. Below me, the human settlement remained quiet, undisturbed, as if this entire scenario was routine. The gnome, its painted smile fixed in mocking amusement, stared up at me like it knew. And then I heard her. The screen door creaked open, and a human female stepped out onto the porch. She wore what my scans identified as pajama pants and a loose shirt emblazoned with the words, "I flexed," and the sleeves fell off. Her hair was disheveled, her posture relaxed, as if she were stepping outside to retrieve a morning newspaper rather than encountering an apex predator. In her hand was a cylindrical device emitting a faint glow, likely a weapon, I assumed. She looked up at me, squinting against the dim light of the settlement's exterior lamps. "Well," she said, her voice calm, almost amused. "What do we have here?" I snarled, activating my vocal modulator to deliver the kind of guttural roar that had paralyzed prey across a dozen systems. The sound echoed through the quiet night, low and reverberating, promising untold violence. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she tilted her head, as if appraising me. "Huh," she said, lifting the glowing device. "Hold still. This is going on the internet." A bright flash momentarily blinded me, and I realized, with mounting humiliation, that the weapon in her hand was no weapon at all. It was a camera. She was documenting me. I thrashed harder, my exoskeleton shimmering with indignation. "Release me, human!" I bellowed, my translator ensuring my words were clear. "I am Zixthrak, terror of 12 systems. You dare mock me?" Her lips curled into a smirk. "Terror of 12 systems, huh? That's cute." Cute. The word reverberated through me, an insult so casual it nearly short-circuited my neural network. Before I could muster a reply, she turned back toward the door, her voice carrying a nonchalant tone that made my crystalline structure quiver with rage. "Hey, Steve," she called inside. "Grab my phone. You're going to want to see this." Within minutes, other humans began to gather. They emerged from their dwellings, some clutching steaming mugs of what my sensors identified as a stimulant beverage called coffee. Others carried glowing devices similar to the one the female wielded, their lenses trained on me as they whispered and chuckled among themselves. "Is it some kind of drone?" one human asked, stepping closer to inspect me. "Nah," said another, a stocky male wearing a shirt that read, "Kiss the Cook." "Look at those legs. Too sparkly for a drone." Too sparkly. "I am not sparkly," I growled, my voice laced with venom. "I am a hunter, the apex predator of my species. You will—" "Hang on," the first human interrupted, raising a hand. "I gotta post this on Reddit." The crowd erupted into laughter, their amusement a tangible force that stung worse than the bear spray. These creatures weren't afraid. They weren't even cautious. They were entertained. It was then that the female, who appeared to be the leader of this ragtag group, produced another device, this one flat and rectangular, and began speaking into it. "Yeah, hi. This is Ranger. Uh-huh. Yep, you're going to want to send a team. We've got some kind of exotic species situation out here. No, it's not dangerous. Well, not anymore." Not anymore. The weight of her words hit me harder than the net constricting my limbs. My reputation, my status as the galaxy's most feared predator, was being reduced to a mere curiosity, a situation to be handled with casual indifference. As the humans continued to gawk and record, I assessed my options. My pride urged me to unleash every weapon in my arsenal, to remind these insolent creatures of what I truly was. But another part of me, quieter yet more insistent, whispered a single word: survive. I activated my emergency teleport beacon. It was a last resort, a failsafe designed to extract me from even the direst circumstances. My crystalline structure pulsed with energy as the beacon engaged, the familiar hum of the teleportation sequence filling the air. "Whoa!" one of the humans exclaimed. "It's glowing! Is it about to—" The world around me dissolved into a blur of light and sound, and for a brief, blissful moment, I thought I had escaped. But when the light faded, I realized something had gone terribly wrong. I was no longer dangling from the net, but I hadn't left New Eden. Instead, I was sprawled on the ground, several hundred meters away, my crystalline appendages tangled in the underbrush. My teleport beacon, damaged by the net's constricting fibers, had only partially activated. I was free from my immediate captivity, but I was still stranded on this infernal planet. The humans, of course, noticed immediately. "There it goes!" one of them shouted, pointing toward the faint shimmer of my stealth field as I attempted to blend into the forest. "Oh, it's trying to hide," another said, their tone dripping with mock sympathy. "Like a sparkly space deer." Sparkly, again with the sparkly. "Don't worry," the female, Ranger, as she had called herself, replied. "It can't have gone far. We'll track it in the morning." Track it. In the morning. As if I were nothing more than a weekend project. I slithered deeper into the forest, the weight of my humiliation pressing down on me. For the first time in my long and storied career, I wasn't the hunter. I was the hunted. And my predators. They were sipping coffee and making jokes about my glitter. But this wasn't over. Not yet. I would regroup, reassess, and prove to these creatures why I was the galaxy's greatest predator. Or so I thought. The forest around me was unnervingly quiet, broken only by the faint rustling of leaves and the steady hum of my crystalline appendages slicing through the underbrush. The teleportation mishap had left me exposed, disoriented, and far too close to the humans for comfort. Their laughter and chatter still echoed in my neural nodes like a haunting melody, each word a dagger to my pride. I had to move. Fast. The humans might have been dismissive, even amused, but I knew better than to underestimate them again. Whatever primitive quirks they possessed, these creatures were dangerous in ways I hadn't fully grasped. Their confidence wasn't arrogance. It was an unshakable certainty born of experience, the kind of certainty that had reduced me, Zixthrak, to little more than a glittery spectacle. I powered up my sensory arrays, scanning for threats as I pushed deeper into the wilderness. My crystalline exoskeleton absorbed the faint moonlight filtering through the canopy, refracting it in a shimmering cascade that made me feel painfully exposed. I activated my stealth field again, praying it would mask the betraying glow of my structure. "Get a hold of yourself," I muttered, the hum of my voice vibrating through the forest. "You are Zixthrak. You've hunted quantum-shifting entities. You've outsmarted hive minds. These humans are no different." But they were. Hours passed as I moved through the dense terrain. My neural network calculated dozens of escape scenarios, but none seemed promising. The humans had no starships in orbit to evade, no advanced tracking drones to disable. They didn't need them. They had something far worse: patience. I caught glimpses of them at first, a flicker of light in the distance, the faint crunch of leaves underfoot. They weren't rushing. They didn't have to. They were walking in my direction with an infuriating casualness. And worse, they were talking as they went. "Think it's heading north?" one voice said, deep and unhurried. "Probably. Ridge looks like the best bet for a hiding spot," replied another. "You want to swing by the coffee shop up there?" My neural core stuttered at the absurdity of their tone. They weren't just tracking me, they were making social plans while doing it. I pushed myself harder, activating my thermal dampeners to mask my body heat. Surely this would slow them down. Surely this would give me an edge. But then I heard her voice, calm, confident, and maddeningly close. "Trail's getting sloppy," she said, her words slicing through the night like a blade. "Cold spots. Must have turned on some dampeners." Smart, I froze, my crystalline form shimmering faintly as I tried to remain perfectly still. My sensors picked up movement, a human shape, no more than 50 meters away. She paused, crouched, and brushed her fingers over the faint indentations my appendages had left in the soft earth. "Too smart for its own good," she added, standing and brushing dirt off her hands. "We'll catch up by dawn." I wanted to scream. I wanted to lunge at her and show her exactly what kind of predator I was, but I knew better. I'd been running for hours, and while my endurance far exceeded that of most species, I was starting to falter. The humans, however, showed no signs of fatigue. If anything, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. They called it hiking, I later learned. Humans pursued their prey not with speed or stealth, but with sheer, relentless persistence. They didn't need to be faster. They just needed to keep going longer than I could. I changed direction, veering toward a river I detected on my scans. If I could cross it, perhaps I could mask my trail long enough to outpace them. The sound of rushing water grew louder as I approached, a roaring cacophony that drowned out the voices of my pursuers. Relief washed over me as I plunged into the cold, swift current, my exoskeleton refracting the moonlight in dazzling patterns. For a moment, I allowed myself to hope. The water was a natural barrier, a shield against their relentless pursuit. Surely, this would buy me the time I needed. But then, as I climbed the opposite bank, dripping and shivering, I heard the voices again. "Spotted it!" someone called. Near Johnson's Creek. Another voice chimed in, filled with excitement. Oh, man, that's like 2 points for our group. Points? Group? Were they turning my escape into some kind of game? I bolted, ignoring the ache in my appendages as I pushed deeper into the forest. My mind raced, searching for an explanation. How had they tracked me so easily? My thermal dampeners were active, my stealth field operating at peak efficiency. Even my footprints should have been masked by the river, and then the answer hit me like a plasma bolt to the chest. Glitter. My crystalline structure, normally an asset in blending seamlessly with any environment, was betraying me. Fragments of my exoskeleton had been left behind, tiny, shimmering traces that sparkled like a trail of breadcrumbs in the moonlight. It's like a fairy with a drinking problem threw up in the woods, I heard the female ranger say, her voice tinged with amusement. I wanted to evaporate on the spot. The humans weren't just tracking me, they were enjoying themselves. I could hear their laughter, their casual banter, the faint clinking of mugs as they passed around more of that infernal stimulant beverage. One of them even suggested taking a group photo when they finally caught up to me. But the true humiliation came later. As dawn broke, painting the forest in hues of gold and green, I found myself cornered at the base of a rocky outcropping. My energy reserves were nearly depleted, my movements sluggish. I turned, expecting to see a heavily armed squad ready to subdue me with advanced weaponry. What I saw instead was worse. A line of humans, some in uniform, others in casual attire, stood a few meters away. One held a tablet, another carried what I later learned was a nature photography drone. Several of them were holding snacks. Snacks. You've got nowhere to run, the lead ranger said, stepping forward. She held out a bottle of something neon and glowing. Gatorade, my database informed me. A human hydration supplement. Come on, you look like you could use this. Her words weren't taunting. They weren't cruel. They were compassionate. It was the final insult. I slumped to the ground, defeated. My crystalline structure dimmed as exhaustion and humiliation overtook me. The humans didn't even need to capture me. They had simply outlasted me. And as they approached, their smiles warm and welcoming, I realized the unthinkable. I wasn't the hunter anymore. I wasn't even the prey. I was a curiosity. The humans gathered around me like I was some peculiar animal, their expressions a mix of fascination and amusement. My crystalline appendages, once symbols of strength and agility, lay limp in the dirt, reflecting the pale light of dawn like fragments of a shattered mirror. I couldn't even muster the energy to protest as they approached, their voices low but undeniably cheerful, as if this were just another routine morning. Poor thing looks exhausted, one of them said, crouching to get a better look at me. She had kind eyes, but they held no fear, only curiosity. Think it's dehydrated? Probably, the ranger replied, handing her a neon bottle of Gatorade. Here, try this. It works wonders on long hikes. Long hikes. That's what they were calling the relentless pursuit that had left me, the apex predator of my species, a heaving, humiliated wreck. I wanted to roar, to lash out, to remind them that I was Zixthrak, the terror of 12 systems. But all that emerged was a pitiful low hum as my energy reserves flickered like a dying star. One of them extended the bottle toward me, the liquid inside sloshing with an unnatural brightness that made my sensory arrays cringe. Go on, she said gently. It's just electrolytes. I stared at her, my multifaceted eyes reflecting her image in fragmented detail. Did she really expect me to drink this concoction? Did she think I'd submit to their strange rituals so easily? Apparently, yes. Because the next thing I knew, she was twisting off the cap and holding the bottle closer. It's either this, she said with a smirk, or I'm getting the hose. The humans laughed, a sound that echoed in my neural network like static. It wasn't malicious, though. It was light, almost playful. They weren't mocking me because they hated me. They were mocking me because in their eyes I wasn't a threat. I was just ridiculous. Defeated, I extended an appendage and reluctantly took the bottle. The liquid inside was sickeningly sweet. its chemical composition jarring against my refined systems, but it did its job. Energy began to seep back into my limbs, enough to sit upright and glare at the humans with what little dignity I had left. "See? Not so bad," the ranger said, leaning on her knee and watching me with a grin. "You're going to be just fine." I doubted that. With my systems partially restored, I tried to assess the situation. The humans weren't restraining me. Not yet, at least. Some were documenting the encounter with their infernal devices, while others stood back, sipping their coffee and chatting like old friends. They weren't soldiers. They weren't hunters. They were something else. "So what's the plan?" one of them asked, nudging the ranger. "We calling this one in, or are we keeping it for ourselves?" "Definitely calling it in," she replied, brushing a strand of hair out of her face. "I am not doing that paperwork alone. This is going straight to wildlife management." Wildlife management. The words sent a shudder through my crystalline core. They weren't just treating me like prey. They were treating me like a nuisance. An invasive species to be cataloged and controlled. The thought made my structure dim with shame. As the humans began discussing logistics, I considered making another run for it. My energy reserves weren't fully restored, but if I timed it right, I might be able to slip away while they were distracted. Yet something stopped me, a nagging curiosity I couldn't shake. What would they do to me if I stayed? "All right," the ranger said, clapping her hands to get everyone's attention. "Let's wrap this up. Wildlife Rehab Center's expecting us in 2 hours, and I'm not missing breakfast for this." Breakfast. They were planning to eat before delivering me to my fate. The casualness of it all was maddening. Before I could protest, they hoisted me onto some kind of makeshift sled, the material rough against my crystalline exoskeleton. I thrashed weakly, but the ranger placed a firm hand on one of my appendages, her grip surprisingly strong. "Relax, Glitterbug," she said, her tone almost soothing. "You're in good hands." Glitterbug. The insult stung more than it should have, but I didn't have the strength to argue. Instead, I allowed myself to be dragged through the forest, the humans chatting and laughing around me as if this were some kind of team-building exercise. When we arrived at the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, my humiliation reached new depths. The facility was a modest structure nestled among the trees, its walls adorned with colorful posters featuring various alien species. "Protect our ecosystems," one of them read, accompanied by a cartoonish depiction of a creature that bore an unsettling resemblance to me. The intake process was a blur of indignities. They scanned me with crude handheld devices, poked and prodded at my appendages, and even took a sample of my crystalline structure for research purposes. At one point, they fitted me with a collar that emitted a soft hum every time I moved too quickly. "You've got a lot to learn, buddy," one of the staff members said as they secured the device. "But don't worry, we're here to help." Help. That's what they called it. Rehabilitation, they explained, was about more than just controlling invasive species. It was about teaching them to coexist, to adapt, to become part of the ecosystem. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear the collar off and remind them who I was, what I was capable of. But instead, I just listened. Because for all their absurdity, there was something unsettlingly persuasive about their methods. Over the next few days, I was subjected to a series of training sessions designed to help me integrate. They taught me about local wildlife, showing me how to identify different species and avoid disrupting their habitats. They made me wear a fluorescent vest that read "Volunteer" in bold letters, as if that somehow legitimized my participation. And then there was the food. Oh, the food. It started with Doritos. The humans used them as bait during one of my training sessions, laying out a trail of the orange, triangular chips that led to a plastic crate filled with more snacks. I knew it was a trap. Of course I did, but the scent was too enticing to resist. "You'd think a Galaxy-class predator would have better self-control," one of the staff members said, watching as I devoured the chips with an enthusiasm that made my exoskeleton shimmer with shame. But it wasn't just the Doritos. They introduced me to an entire array of human delicacies, bagels, donuts, something called a breakfast burrito. Each bite was a revelation, a strange and wonderful combination of flavors that my species had never encountered. I hated myself for enjoying it, but I couldn't stop. By the time my rehabilitation was complete, I was a shell of my former self. My crystalline structure, once a testament to my strength and precision, now bore the faint orange stains of Dorito dust. My pride, once unshakable, had been replaced with a grudging respect for these infuriating creatures. And yet somehow I didn't mind. When they released me back into the wild, I didn't run. I stayed. Because somewhere along the way, I had realized the truth. Humans weren't just predators. They were something far more terrifying. They were problem solvers. They didn't destroy their enemies. They adapted them. They didn't hunt for the sake of conquest. They hunted to understand, to connect, to coexist. And as much as I hated to admit it, they had won. Not through force, but through something far more insidious. Kindness. Now as I sit in my small, human-furnished apartment, surrounded by the smell of coffee and the faint hum of a human research station, I can't help but smile. My roommates, 2 graduate students studying xenobiology, are sprawled on the couch, their laptops open and covered in sticky notes. "Hey, Glitterbug," one of them says, tossing me a bag of Doritos. "You up for another round of data collection?" I catch the bag with a crystalline appendage, my structure glinting in the artificial light. "Fine," I reply, tearing open the bag. "But only if you don't call me that." They laugh, and for the first time in cycles, I don't mind. Because maybe, just maybe, they were right. Humans aren't prey. They're partners. And that, my friends, is a lesson worth learning.